What's up, everybody? We're back on another episode from the gutter to greatness. And again, we always are trying to bring you a lot of greatness here on our show. But the brother's got a story, so we're going to hear about it today. And, today we're going to be talking about the velocity as momentum with a twist. Because this brother has put a nice twist on it, and he has definitely got some momentum. But he didn't start with momentum. He started somewhere else, and he's going to talk about it today. And so today we have Marlo Pray Lo, owner of Velocity, which is an educational institution. When I say that is he has some products, he has some courses, he has some other things that he's going to talk about, some books that he's going to talk about today. And I just can't wait to hear more from this brother. I'm going to let him kind of talk about it and tell us more. So if you could, we always want to know, tell us, obviously we know your name now, but tell us, what do you do currently and why should anybody care?
You know what? Hey, first of all, I appreciate you allowing me to be here, man. And that's a great question. What do you do and why should anybody care? We talk to students all the time about allowing people to put their arms around you, especially in the space that they're currently in, because this is the final frontier for a lot of our students before they graduate and before they walk across that stage. So we ask those guys, why should you care about where you are right now? Because this is it. So we are Velocity Education Group, and what we do is we help students prepare for life after high school, right? And there's a lot of reasons why folks should care. It's a lot of reasons why instructors should care, teachers, superintendents, students themselves, because we are getting the students ready for the final frontier, right? And we focus on early intervention and early awareness. So we want to go into these middle schools and high schools as early as we can and really plant the seeds of education. We want to plant some of the seeds of decision making. We want to plant some of the seeds about life skills in general, so that when these students graduate and when they walk across that stage, they know for a fact that they have a plan for themselves. They have a plan for their life after high school. They have an idea of what success looks like. Not anyone else's success, not mom's version of success for you, not your dad's version, not mama, not grandma, but your version of success for yourself. And that's what every school district, every parent should want for their students, right? They want them to graduate, move on to whatever level of success that is and whatever that looks like for the students individually. And that is exactly why, people should care about what we do. I'm trying to make sure that these guys don't walk across the stage and now they're all of a sudden making bad decisions. They're 18, they have idle time on their hands, they get a felony, they make a wrong move. Now all of a sudden the trajectory of their life has been changed forever because they graduated and they did not have a plan for their life.
But Marlo, wait, we're school. We got school counselors. Why do we need y'all?
Oh yeah, that's a great question.
I don't need y'all. We got
that's
counselors.
Right. That's right.
Such and such.
Yeah, you got programming. Yeah, you got programs. You got superintendents. You got all kinds of people dedicated, walking the halls and in the schools, doing all these great things. But the problem is, there's never enough resources, right? Because if we had enough resources right now, you would not open the paper and see kids still bringing guns to school. You wouldn't turn on the news and see all these fights and things going on. You wouldn't turn on the school and see high absenteeism rates, and things of that nature. Or you wouldn't turn on the tube, and see all the different things going on about all these different demographics of people being left behind in terms of going on in 2 years and 4 years. Other age groups and other demographics and races of people are moving forwards, whereas we're either falling behind, or moving backwards. So it takes a village, you know what I mean? It takes everybody. And if we had all the answers, then, we wouldn't be sitting here trying to come up with the answers, right? So it takes us all to get into the system and try to help pull these kids across the finish line.
So now, where did all this start at? So why did you start this organization? What was the purpose behind it? Can you give me a little background?
Yeah, it's this is one of those. This one was a labor of love, right? Velocity Education Group, just the company itself. I mean, when we started the company, I was teaching high school, and I was teaching CTE, right, which is a career and tech ed. So I was working with students who were learning management, marketing, and entrepreneurship, which I love. I love talking about those concepts. I love giving the young people that information. And, it was one of the greatest times of my life. I enjoyed being on the front line and working with students. And I just started asking the kids, what are you going to do when you graduate? Because I was working at the high school level at the time. And I would often ask the kids, I would want to know, what are you going to do when you graduate? And I asked all levels, ninth grade, 10, 11, 12. And I would often get the answer of, well, I don't really know, bro. You know what I'm saying? I got ways to go. Or I would get the proverbial, man, I ain't going to college, man. You know what I'm saying? I ain't going to college, bro. You know that ain't really my thing either. You know what I'm saying? And I said, well, no, I don't know what you're saying. First of all, I don't know what you're saying. And second of all, what if you don't do that, then what is your plan? Right? Let's talk through what does that look like? So, one year I had a fourth block group that was extremely challenging. It was extremely challenging. And I knew that in order to really get through to this group, I was going to need some different material. We were reading all the things that you read, in high school, and we had all the business books and the Stephen Coveys and, some other things that had been donated to the school, to kind of help with the tutelage and get students understanding business and life. And I said, man, these concepts right here may be too advanced. These guys need something different, right? And it wasn't that they couldn't, not that they weren't thinking at that higher level, but they needed to see something that was more reflective of themselves in the material so they could grasp it more and just have a better understanding. So, you hear all these terminologies about being able to see yourself reflective in the reading, and students should be able to gravitate toward things that resonate, with them in their home life. So as I started thinking about that, I was talking to my principal at the time, and I said, if I put together some material that I felt like was appropriate and I could use in the classroom, could I do that? And they welcomed it. I was in a great district. It was forward thinking. And they said, yeah, anything that you can think of that you feel like is going to move the needle and help these students, understand how to prepare themselves for life after high school, or whatever it is, whatever ideas you have. We weren't sure what direction we were going to go in at the time, but I just knew I needed to put something on paper that I felt like could reach my students, in particular. So I did just that. I went home and I started working on, my first book. And the name of that book was called I Ain't Going to College, right? A guide for after high school. And even when I think about it, now it always makes me pause a little bit, because when I went home that day and I sat down, I didn't go home to write a book. I sat down to put together something that was going to be engaging, something that was going to be educational, something that was going to be motivational. And the overall goal was, I want to bring forth some material that the kids are going to gravitate towards and resonate and read and say, man, if this person in this book was able to go forward and succeed and find some success, and he kind of looks like me, maybe a story is similar to mine, then maybe I can do it too, right? And that was all I wanted to do. I didn't know if I was going to do a fiction or a truth, a fiction or a nonfiction. And I ended up telling my own life story. And that actually was not, what I set out to do. I was going to tell a story about this guy trying to graduate from high school, but he gets into trouble. He goes through some ups and downs. He's got these humble beginnings,
Right.
what you're talking about here.
And that's where I definitely would like to understand that. So, because you didn't start off as Marlo Pray Lo, who runs a very successful company, who has been an educator. I'm sure you started from somewhere. So, where are your origins from? What state do you come from? What area do you come from?
Yeah, so I grew up in Sumter, South Carolina, right, which is a rural town right in the state of South Carolina, not too far from the capital, which is Columbia. And, as we matriculated, and grew up in Sumter, then, we went through a lot of different things because it's the 80s, right? And I tell people, if you didn't grow up in the 80s, the one thing about the 80s, crack cocaine, drugs, prostitution, man, those things were tearing through the Black community, not just in my neighborhood, but in neighborhoods, really all over the country. I
My
mean,
neighborhood too.
that's what it was.
Yeah, I'm from one of the poorest cities in the country, but crack hit us extremely hard, and we're like a drug hub for a lot of different areas. So it's been interesting to watch the city erode, especially after the industries moved out because they shifted and changed, and then the drugs hit extremely hard, and education is 646 out of 646 in New York State in this city. Highest murder rates per capita, usually lowest graduation rates for Black males at 9%. So this is the city that I'm from. So I definitely understand. So you're saying Sumter was hit hard by the crack epidemic, and how did that affect you and your family?
Yeah, Sumter was definitely hit hard, by the epidemic. Similar statistics, as to what you just said. You saw a lot of poverty, a lot of industry leaving, especially around that time. You had your cabinet companies and, your manufacturers and all those different things that were leaving, right around the time that the drugs and the poverty really started getting bad. So then what happens with that? People can't make money. Then, they just want to start trying to do other things in order to make money, which are usually illegal things. And all those things lead to even more crime, more truancy, kids out of school. So, the public parks and things like that, the places that you used to go to for fun and to find refuge, those became the drug hubs and, the real centers for a lot of the violence. And, you just couldn't move around as a young person and do the types of things that young people did. And, when you're living in an environment like that, where you're already on Section 8, the majority of the city, the schools are Title 1, kids are eating, 85, 90% eating free reduced lunch, coming to school, with the lunch ticket, having to get kerosene for heat and, and things like that. You're not necessarily going to go to school and strive to achieve, all of your best, especially in particular if you didn't eat last night. Like me and and a lot of my guys did. Or when you're in a household where you're basically having to fend for yourself and you're going through these different situations, you're hitting the light switch, roaches are running everywhere, and the house is cold in the wintertime because there's no heat. It's hot in the summertime because there's no air conditioning. So, it's hard to get across the point when people hear those kinds of stories, and you have to try to get them to understand this is what people are dealing with. So you go to school, school it's a great outlet, and it's a great chance to get your education. But when your environment is not on a solid ground and it's not on a solid footing, then you got to go to school with a whole nother mentality. And
Right.
I think the folks who come out of that and are able to come out of that and go on and be successful, I mean, you talk about gutter to greatness, man, it's a big difference in somebody who tried to open their refrigerator and couldn't open it because it had a lock on it. You had to ask for permission to get something to eat. Then somebody who went home, went in the cabinet, got a snack, went to the pantry, then they went in the kitchen, hobnobbed around with mom and dad, while the food was being cooked and they ate good. They went home and went to sleep. That's what you want. But so many people that I can name were not in that type of situation. And
Right.
when you see them, you can see the frustration in their faces. You can see the anger, in their faces. And those are the guys that went to school. You lash out, you start getting in trouble,
So
and before you know it, you start making bad decisions.
So was that, was that some things that you experienced directly, and what did that look like? Also, is Charlemagne the guy from Sumter, or no?
No, Charlemagne the God is from Monk's Corner, South
From Monk's
Carolina.
Corner. Okay, that's right. I knew he
He's
was
from
from
Monk's Corner. He's from
somewhere
Monk's Corner.
in there, and I have some relatives in South Carolina, and it's interesting. So I remember going down to King Street, right, and you come outside at nighttime and you get your own personal gnats that go with you. So they know your name and they come out. You come out the house and then it's flying around your head, and
Oh yeah.
then you go back in and they go away and then they come back out again. Yeah, I don't know about all that.
Yeah,
But
they'll lift you up. They will lift you up to a
yeah,
higher height if you let them.
I stood in an ant pile, like a red ant pile, and went in
Oh,
the house, ran in, taking my clothes off,
oh yeah.
and screaming, and yeah, I leave that for you. I leave that for y'all, man. I stay in the concrete jungle.
Yeah, they
Um,
probably saw you coming a mile away. They probably couldn't wait to get you.
no, they knew I wasn't from there. They knew I wasn't ready for it. I wasn't built for it. I, but was your life? Did you have to go through this? Did you have the refrigerator locked? Did you have what was it like personally? Like tell me your gut of the greatness story. Like where did it start for little Marlo?
Yeah,
And what did that look like? You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
walk us through
It's
it.
man, it's so wild because I was asking my grandmother one day, rest her soul. I said, "What was I like when I growing up when I was little?" And she said, "Man, you were so shy. You were incredibly shy because I spent a lot of split time. I grew up on Edward Street with my mom, but I would go to my grandmother's house for refuge. And I would go there sometimes on the weekends. And I can remember one of the first times I got over to her house, she made me strip. She made me take off all of my clothes at the front door. And I came in and she said, "Let me look at your arm." And I held my arm up and I could literally just rub my arm and see the dirt that was on my arm that it came because I wasn't being held accountable even to take a bath, even to bathe or do some of the basic things that you're supposed to do to really groom yourself. And I came in, she gathered up all my clothes, man. She put them in the wash. And we sat down. And we had a conversation just about basic hygiene and taking care of yourself. And we as she was talking and telling me, I became ashamed and embarrassed. And that's when I really started to think about what is going on with my life. Like why am I in this situation? So I started asking adults who I live with questions, why are we in this house where I don't have a bed? Why am I having to sleep on this ottoman that I gotta take another ottoman and push it together and wrap all the covers around it? Why can you not just get a job? Like I see other people do. So that we can have money and income and do some of the things that I know need to be done. So, from sleeping on the floor at times to sleeping on ottomans at times, to sharing beds with people, being again in the house, no heat, no air. I mean, the winter time was just so cold in that house. I'll never forget. I would put my clothes on the night before school and just sleep in them because I know during the night I was gonna be able to just blow smoke and I could see my breath rising right in front of me inside the house just because that's how cold it was. I didn't want to get up and change my clothes in the cold winter air. So we just got dressed that night, got up in the morning, brushed our clothes off, and just went straight to school. And I remember, even just standing in the cheese line, getting free cheese, having to go to the church, get a box of clothes for Christmas time and Thanksgiving. So, when you're moving through those kind of situations and you living in, that kind of poverty, it gives you a very different lens, on life and kind of how things look. So as I continue to matriculate, through elementary school and through middle school, I thought everybody lived like that,
Right.
but as I started getting into middle school and early high school, I started wanting to get my own money, just like everybody else. You start looking around, you seeing the big cars, rims, people driving with all the bass. You go to the park, cats coming outside, they selling all kind of drugs, showing you all kind of big money, big wads of dollars, and saying, this is what you guys should be doing. I remember my guy asked me, he said, "Man, what you gonna waste time going to school for, man? Look at this." And he just peeled all the $100 bills. And I was like, man, I want that. What am I going to school for? And I really started to question, what's the point? I'm like, if I'm just going to eat, I'm really just going for breakfast and lunch. That's it. I mean, I could care less about learning and the academic piece. I didn't have all the right classes. I wasn't the smartest person. My mom didn't go to school, so I wasn't worried about, college and all that stuff. So I didn't think any of that stuff mattered. For me, I didn't think it mattered for my friends because when people started asking about plans for life after high school and what are you guys going to do, man, we were just lost. Like, well, what are we supposed to do? We don't have the grades. I mean, we haven't taken all the classes. So what happens to people like us who go to the grocery store and steal and put meat down the front of our pants and walk out? Or what happened to the guys like us who go down to the city, to J.C. Penney, throw a couple extra shirts in the bag, and try to walk out? What happens to the guys like us? And so we were struggling trying to figure out, where our place was going to be in society. Because me personally, I didn't know. And when people started, having that conversation, I didn't think I was good enough to do anything. Self-esteem was low. I didn't think I was smart enough. We didn't ever go to college, so we never been on college tours or, seen anything academically related. So, we just wanted to fight, run the streets, and try to get our hands on some dope, so that we could sell it, because that's what we saw everybody do. So,
Right. So
when I started.